Sims Walker, knocked down.
Oh my God! Davis is going running all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
In trouble, he's going to be sacked. No, gets away. He runs, gets away again, goes to the 40, gets away again.
Jackson takes it himself. Look at him turn back and forth. Oh! He broke his ankles.
I have never seen this before in my life.
Still looking, firing, near corner. It's caught. Denver, unbelievable.
And welcome to the fourth down fiasco.
Hello and welcome to another Fourth Down Fiasco exclusive interview. My name is Jordan Pryor. As always, with me today are my co-hosts and contributors, Danny Weber, Tanner Vinsky, and also a very special guest, an individual with us today who he's a decorated European player and coach, current majority owner of the Nordic Storm, chairman of the EFA, the Nordic naysayer, the Danish dude, Michael Planeta. How are you?
Oh.
Hey, I'm good. Yeah, it just cut out for a quick second, so that's why I was a little bit slow to reply. Just a quick thing. I'm not the chairman of the EFA. I'm just a member franchise.
Ah, gotcha. Sorry about that one. Well, I appreciate you for making sure that we got that one right. But yeah, we're excited to have you today. Very excited to dive into some of the questions, the burning questions that we have as a community with the EFA. But, you know, first things first, we got to know, how does it feel being the second best Nordic owner to be on this podcast?
Only the second best?
Well, I'm kidding.
No, it's good. But first of all, I'm very happy to be here with you guys. It's been a long way coming, and I think it's very fun to have an appearance with you guys. I think you guys are doing an excellent job of covering European football.
We appreciate that. You know, it's something that, Danny kind of got Tanner and I both into this, but, it's been a long road coming for us as well, kind of learning all the players, how everything works, and now getting to learn all about new leagues. So, the Nordic Storm are newcomers to the stage of professional football here in Europe. What did the EFA/ELF breakup look like for you as a brand new franchise trying to figure out its place in this world?
That's a very good question. I want to say that, first of all, when we started this project, we hadn't imagined that our second season coming into 2026 would have so many ongoings after the season as there's been. We had probably aimed for a little more of a steadfast route for all of this. But in all honesty, I mean, what happens on the league scale is one thing. And my major focus is, of course, having the Nordic Storm be a longevity success. So the part about the EFA, the ELF, and all these things, for the good and the bad of it, has been a necessary thing that happened. But my main focus is still to have a long-term franchise success in the Nordic Storm.
Love it.
Makes sense. Yeah. Easy and simple, right?
Yeah.
But so we could talk about the Nordic Storm all day. We can talk about that for hours. But I think everyone's main question is the EFA. And to begin with the EFA, how involved were you or the Nordic Storm as a whole with the formation of the EFA? And you said you're not chairman, but what's your role in the EFA? And what's kind of the major goal of the EFA during its inception?
Yeah. In all honesty, we were latecomers to the EFA. The EFA was already pre-established before we even were a franchise. So a majority of the franchises had sat down for a while before we joined and had established the EFA. And at one point, due to our own what we learned during the ELF season, we also saw it as a good option to enter the EFA and be a member franchise. And my role, as with anybody else who's in the EFA, is to be a member franchise and to, in principle, do a lot of what the ELF does, or not the ELF, the NFL does, and have an equal say in which direction are we going. How do we make sure that there's stability in football in Europe? How can we make it something that is valuable for the fans, for ourselves, for the entire European football community? How can we grow the sport? How can we help the youth enter into the US and all these things? So from an overall framework, the EFA is something that is created in terms of having governance, longevity, and growth of football on a common scale like the NFL would do it.
I mean, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're saying you were kind of late into the process of joining in on the EFA. Are you able to, kind of clue us in how late, like how much was the EFA already formed by the time you guys got the invitation to jump in on it as the Nordic Storm?
I think, and this is out of memory, of course, but you could in principle track that on SoMe because we were announced as a member franchise by the EFA, and I think we were the 10th or 11th team that joined into the EFA at that point. So we were relatively late, if you want to call it that. I think we had the first meeting with everybody in the EFA in August or September at a physical location.
Awesome. And so kind of with a lot of the talk of the EFA and the AFLE, I mean, there's a lot of hope for most of the people that are fans of European football for a reunification, the joining together of both leagues. Do you think that at this stage, is there anything that's a possibility to make that occur? And if so, what would that be?
First of all, I agree. I think the best thing for the entire European football community is unification. I don't think that a divided league or many leagues across Europe is anything that's good for football at all. I still think that there is some sort of hope, but hope is not necessarily something that materializes in a short term. The biggest thing here is that if you want to have alignment across Europe, there needs to be something that's built on the right kind of governance, on something that is trustworthy. You have to have something that's a sustainable business model. You probably also want to just make sure that the entire foundation of what you're doing needs to determine whether a cooperation between the franchises is feasible and possible. And that takes many things, both from personalities to finances to common values and all these things.
Gotcha. And so I kind of want to go back to something that you said earlier about being late to the party, so to speak, that you'd mentioned that y'all were one of the, I think, 10th or 11th team to be asked to join the EFA. And that does make me wonder, what was the change for the teams that are now part of the AFLE? What did that look like in terms of them leaving the EFA? Because I think that was something that we never really heard word on, but it was just, we've got these 11 teams that are a part of the EFA, and then overnight now 4 of them have left and joined the AFLE.
That's a very good question, and I actually can't answer it. I don't know the exact route of why they chose to jump away from the EFA. I have ideas and guesstimates and so on, but I don't know the exact reason.
Sure. Fair enough. And then in terms of the EFA as the current organization with the 7 teams, how is it, better than its predecessor, the ELF, or what are aspects of the EFA that are different from the ELF that people should be excited about?
Yeah, I think different is a better word than better. Sure. And I'd actually like to start with a little bit of a framing of that, because I do think that there is a bit of credit due to the ELF. There have been 5 seasons of good to great football across Europe and at an increasing level. There's been marketing, there's been fan engagement and so on, and there was a good level of football across Europe. So I think there needs to be a little bit of credit due for that, and especially for the fans that appeared at the games and learned the game all over the European countries. So rather than saying better, I just want to say that the difference here is different approaches. The old setup was as it was, with the governance as it was, and the overall framework of the EFA now is that it is something we do together with transparency, especially between the franchises on, and we're learning from each other. So there's a lot of knowledge share on what do you do in terms of housing, what do you do in terms of salary cap, how can we make sure that we treat players in a good manner and payments get done on time and so on. That hasn't really been an issue with the franchises in the EFA at any point. But so it's a matter of taking the learnings from what didn't work as good as it could have been and taking that into how can we do it better for all, both for the franchises, the fans, and the players. So it is a strong emphasis on having the right governance, having the right decision procedures, making sure that there's financial discipline and that there's club alignment on values and so on, that salary caps are met and honored. So it's overall just a thing of having long-term framework for success for everybody.
Sure.
So you kind of said the word every management person has been throwing around recently and kind of in the last couple of years as well, transparent or transparency.
Mm-hmm.
From a media side and a fan side, everyone seems to be kind of getting annoyed with the word transparency because some leagues will say they're transparent and then say nothing for months or give a basic rundown of just words on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
How will the EFA be transparent with their fans and to the media?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, because everybody's been throwing that word around, and I think you have to divide it into two different boxes. There's a transparency that goes into the EFA franchises of how we communicate, how we do things with each other, the governance and so on, which needs to be a transparent framework so that everybody can trust each other on moving in the right direction. And then there's the transparency in terms of communication towards the fans and the media and so on. And the issue with that transparency has been that the overall work process of going from the ELF to the EFA to establishing a league to figuring out which teams do we have in there, having a split of franchises, creating a schedule, securing stadiums for a playoff, and all these things is something that has needed to be going on behind the lines that we at least haven't been able to be fully transparent with, as we did not want to tell people something that were not true or fully made in a framework where we could stand behind it and say, this is how it's going to be. So the transparency is coming, but it has just taken a lot of behind the scenes work for us to be able to give that transparency. So it's just a delayed transparency. It's not a matter of it's not there.
That follows. But so going back a little bit to a previous answer you said, to make sure that teams are actually following, like paying their players, appropriate houses, all of this, what is the EFA doing to, basically verify teams can afford it, are doing it, will do it, etc.?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And that actually leads into, of course, as we have seen previously, people haven't gotten paid. We've seen bankruptcies of teams. So they entered the league, they went out again, Istanbul Rams, for example. And that means that within our governance framework, we have established a committee, expansion committee, and any team that wants to apply to go into the league will need to adhere to several KPIs and at a vetting process of who owns the team? Are they credible people? Do they have the finances? Do they have the infrastructure? Who's backing it? And all these things. And that process will more or less take a year to make sure that everybody is vetted correctly.
So just kind of to piggyback on the point you're saying, like we were saying with the vetting of the new franchises, there's been obviously a lot of murmurings from both sides, both leagues, about expansion franchises making their way to the EFA. I know they've already kind of confirmed for 2027 that they're looking at a London team. But just outside of that, can you confirm any further if there's any other expansion franchises? And if so, do you know what cities and countries that are being specifically sought after?
I can confirm that we have many dialogues with many teams and countries. So that's a good thing. There's a major interest in football and owning a football franchise, and just sports investments in general all over the globe is a major thing. So there's many people who want to do something within the atmosphere of professional football in Europe. Everybody knows already that there is plans to have an Italy team and a London team in 2027. And that's the current official statement from that. Could there be one or two other areas of teams, or maybe even more? Yes, but again, that will depend on the KPI process being done within a reasonable framework to have that on board. So I can neither confirm or deny anybody else joining in the short term.
Excluding everything, like what would be your top cities to bring a football team to? Just, it doesn't have to tie back to anything, but if you were to like, hey, let's plop a team in a city, what city would you want? Besides Copenhagen.
I already have that, so that's pretty good. I think there are some relatively easy pickings to take, and that would of course be to name the cities of the AFLE teams and say that would be the teams that we want to have in there for a United Football League. Mm-hmm. You have London and Milan, or Italy at least, that is on the map as well. And then if you look at that roadmap, you're pretty well covered all over Europe. One of the glaring holes would be maybe the Netherlands. As I recall, they did have a team back in NFL Europe days. Mm-hmm. So that could be something that might be feasible. It would still depend on how strong the football community is in Holland. And I actually can't recall. I can recall from my own playing days that I've played against them, but I have no clue how well structured football is in that area today. You could have, from again the old NFL Europe days, the northern part of England could maybe be something. But I also think that there's several areas in this that needs to be taken into account, because you also don't want to grow the league too fast. Although growth is great and important, you want to have the right teams in the right cities with the right amount of homegrown quality players. You want to have the financials in order. You want to have a vetting of the people behind it. Are they trustworthy? Are they good people? Can we work with them within the EFA? Do we see eye to eye? There could maybe be something in the eastern part of Germany. As I recall, there's nothing really there, and I don't know if there's any established team there, or if it would need to be an entirely new franchise. We need a team in Switzerland all of a sudden. There's no team there. So there are still small places here and there where you could fit in a franchise, pending all the KPIs being there.
Well, if you can ever figure out a way to revive the Barcelona Dragons, I will personally build you a statue, and I will put it in the Louvre myself. I want you to know that.
Thank you.
I mean, it's
actually that's a very good point. I mean, the Barcelona Dragons was, of course, also an old NFL Europe franchise. So it would be great to have that brand back in there. And my concern would maybe be the exact same concern I would have for a franchise in Norway or in Sweden or maybe even in Finland, is that there might or might not be enough homegrowns in Spain to have room for 2 franchises. You can easily have several franchises in Germany. It's the biggest country in Europe, or in the EU anyway. And they also have a long history of football, so there's a lot of football players in Germany. I think if you take Denmark, there's roughly 2,000 athletes playing football, and that's across all age groups. You maybe have 2,500, 3,000 in Sweden, and taking all of those players and summing them up to people who are old enough and good enough to play in a pro league, then it begins to be hard. And I would imagine that the same numbers goes for maybe even Italy, maybe even Switzerland, maybe even Spain, that you have 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people that all together play football, and then it becomes hard to have more than one franchise.
Sure. Well, no, it's a good point you bring up, just because you look at even the NFL, right? I mean, you have 32 franchises there, and you can make a very good argument that there are 4 consistent teams that do not match up snuff with the rest of the league, right? So if you expand too quickly,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you expand too quickly and you keep having all these things, I mean, we even saw it a little bit with the ELF. I mean, we had 3 to 4 teams that just weren't there competitively. And, you know, if you're taking the EFA and you're like, yeah, we're going to go into Edinburgh, we're going to go into Barcelona, we're going to get Milan and Naples, and then all of a sudden you're looking at a 16 league team, and, 6 of the teams are the only ones that are actually competitive. So,
yeah, and I agree. And then on that note, that's one thing that makes me happy for this season with the 7 teams we have. The quality of play is going to be extremely high. It also makes me a little bit nervous because there's not going to be any easy games this year. So everything is going to be very hard fought, and we're probably talking 1 or 2 touchdowns as a spread for every single game, I would imagine.
Oh, I mean, we've been hyping it up for the last couple of weeks, and when we talk about the EFA, I mean, realistically, the worst team right now is Tyrol. Like, that's a really solid roster. And even then, you would face a lot of backlash from a lot of people saying Tyrol's the worst team, So the parity should be amazing to see. I feel bad for you guys at the Storm, because it's gonna be a gauntlet that you guys will have, but it should make some really good football.
Yeah, and we're hopefully going to be better at our kicking game. I think that's going to be important in 26. Yeah,
hopefully.
Yeah.
So I did have another, I guess, financials question too, since we're talking about expansions, markets, KPIs, all of those measurables. One of the things that made last year's ELF season so awesome was, especially during playoff times, being able to watch the games on Amazon Prime. Like that, especially for us Americans, that made it so easy to access. And so I didn't know, has the EFA, you may not be able to tell me everything because you might be in ongoing negotiations, but are y'all looking towards getting a streaming service? If you already have a streaming service, what is it? We just want to know, especially here in the States, what is the easiest way for us to be able to consume the EFA this upcoming season?
Yeah, and you touched on it. I mean, it's ongoing negotiations, but hopefully and most likely it's going to be very close to what it looked like last year.
Okay,
beautiful.
Perfect.
Yeah, it'd be sad if we had to start illegally streaming it if it was only in the EU. That's not what we want.
Dude, it was so nice.
I my phone and live stream it so you guys can see it there.
Oh, perfect. Just get meta glasses and you could just you don't have to hold your phone.
Business expense. No, it really was so nice though, just to be able to, wake up, brew some coffee, hit Amazon Prime, put it on the TV, and watch some football.
Yeah, and that makes sense as well. And I think overall that's also some of the feedback we've heard from our own co-investors. We do have a number of U.S. investors within the Nordic Storm and so on. That morning game prior to NFL schedule is awesome. You can have your morning football game and then you walk into the NFL games. Of course, that's late in the season that you have that opportunity, but still having that morning game is something that people think is very awesome.
Sure.
Yeah. Gets the day going. Gets going. Football. Who doesn't love football?
Yeah, you're wrong. Football couldn't be better.
Yeah. But so what we call the tipping point between the two leagues is the one team in southern Germany, the Munich Ravens. They were the last team to decide what league they wanted to go to. What was their reasoning for waiting so long, and kind of what was the tipping point and the negotiation of that? How did that all happen?
Yeah, first of all, I can't answer for the Munich Ravens. That's entirely up for them to do. But whenever you have something like this, where you're really stirring the pot of something that was established, you need to have some sort of alignment within that new structure, and sometimes alignment takes time for everybody to understand what is the structure. Do we share the same vision? How is the level of comfort in all we're structuring here? How does the legal documents look, and so on? So the most important thing is that eventually that alignment came, and now we just have a stronger overall ecosystem.
Perfect. So we're going to move into a hypothetical here. So if you had no barriers to access, if that's financial, political, geographical, geopolitical, all of that, what would be your dream scenario for the EFA moving forward? And specifically, since you're an owner of the Nordic Storm, how would the Nordic Storm's day-to-day operations change in this dream scenario for the EFA?
Well, first of all, I mean, remember that the comments I'm making is for the Nordic Storm within the EFA and not on behalf of the EFA. But if you look at my dream scenario, I want to start with the Storm. We have, as a franchise, in my opinion, a very unique opportunity because we are the only franchise within the Nordics. So from a very quiet wishful thinking, I would like to see the Nordic Storm be the biggest sports brand across the entire North, because there is no other competitors within that scene. So it's not like when you have a soccer club in Sweden, they fight against the soccer club in Denmark or in Norway and so on. But from the Nordic Storm, we can in principle pull the entire North into being fans of one franchise. And hopefully I can wind up in Helsinki and seeing somebody wearing a Nordic Storm cap. So I would like to see that across the North, having a very big and unified sports brand that everybody roots for in the North. On the EFA side, I actually don't want to call it my dream for the EFA. I'd rather call it a dream for football. I would like to see football in Europe be somewhat mini version of the NFL or the NFL, something that is professionally run, profitable, great fan engagement, TV rights, and everything that resembles the NFL as it is, with great ownership structure, great governance, maybe even a draft someday in the future. Yeah. Something where you actually build something that's long-term sustainable for football, where everybody wins, from the fans to the owners.
I kind of want to follow up just on the kind of dream of like a united Nordic team where, everybody's rooting for the Nordic Storm. How close are you guys, or do you guys think that you'll be able to get Norway into the homegrown population for your players with the Nordic Storm anytime soon, or is that still a little ways out?
I mean, first of all, from my own experience within football in Scandinavia, Norway has for many years, and I might be speaking out of turn here because I haven't really followed Norwegian football for years, but the football community in Norway is very small. Mm-hmm. So even if we had it as a homegrown territory, there might be one or two players we would like to sign. So it wouldn't really change anything. Also, I would think that even if you combined Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland, you would still have a scale of football players that would be substantially lower than Britain or France and so on. So from my perspective, in terms of having that as my territory, it would make total sense from a population and football playing standpoint. From a competitive standpoint, there might be arguments not to do it, because if you combine 4 nations and you could pick and choose between the best of the best, we would probably have a very, very strong homegrown team, and might not even need imports at all. But from a population and number of football players standpoint, it would make total sense.
Gotcha. And in the future, because I know that you mentioned, like, hey, whenever I take a trip out to Helsinki, I want to be able to see Nordic Storm jerseys. So as you're building this culture, is there, any plans in the future to maybe have a game in a Helsinki or in Stockholm or Gothenburg or, any of these other major cities in the north?
We actually had a plan for doing it here in 26 in Stockholm, for that simple reason that the grass field of the stadium we're playing at needed to be refurbished. They pushed that for a season, which I think is excellent for us, because now we can spend another season on having that home base and getting our fans used to being there and so on. But in 27, they absolutely need to refurbish the grass field. So we will probably have 1 or 2 games that is somewhere else. We have been talking about having a game in Jutland, so the western part of Denmark. And we've also been talking about having a game either in Malmö or Stockholm, to also engage the fans there. Of course, that's now in 27, so it's sort of out of sight, out of mind. But it's still something that we would like to bring the Storm on tour, both because we need to, but also actually because we want to.
How's the Nordic Storm's presence in Malmo? I mean, just because you're across a bridge, do you see a lot of fans out in the area? Do you hear people, traveling over? I mean, I know it's a short little bridge, but you're still dealing with different countries. I'm just curious if it's working as a marketing scheme.
Again, for a 1-year-old franchise moving into season 2, I think we had a very good outing of fans with multinational background, whether it be people traveling from Europe and up or from Sweden and over. We did see a lot of nationalities showing up at the stadium. And of course, we have roughly half of our homegrowns are Swedish. So their friends and families are traveling over as almost a given. And then they're bringing their friends and so on. So I think we established a rather good foothold of Sweden. Of course, we still don't see that many, in my perspective, players or fans coming down from Stockholm, because it is a rather long travel.
Definitely.
But overall, I think we've done pretty well for a first-year franchise, where we spend $0 on marketing in year 1, and we still averaged about 2,200 people at the stadium. So I think that was a good first year. I hope we can hit 3, 4, or 5K on average this season, and we're also going to do marketing and then all of other initiatives to try and pack the stadium for season 2.
Love it.
Awesome.
And it sounds like, again, you're building this community of football in the North, so to speak. I keep, every time you mention the North, I think of Game of Thrones, but trying to be the kings of the North, right? And
Yep.
Part of that is also this kind of unorthodox method to ownership that you have, taking that Green Bay model again, and allowing really anybody to be a minority owner in the Nordic Storm. There is Danny smiling, because every time we bring up being a minority owner, Danny's like, that's me. But have you seen, success from this in terms of how engaged people are? Because there is this, just like we have homegrown players, we have homegrown owners too.
Yeah. The honest answer is somewhere in between. The first couple actually just only the first investment round we did see a fair number of minority investors going in with relatively small amounts, which were exactly what we wanted. The reason we chose to do it were to, in principle, get a fan base for free, hopefully. That if we had 3,000 people who bought a minority stake, they would sort of, in my mind, automatically show up at the stadium. We don't have 3,000 investors today. We probably have about 50, 60 altogether. So in the Green Bay Packers mindset that we wanted originally, it didn't pan out, which is absolutely fair. I think some people wanted to see proof of concept. Some people didn't believe in it, which is, again, fair. Some people maybe wanted it but didn't have the money. So there's a lot of things that went into why it didn't necessarily pan out as I would like to see it in a dream vision. Today we are in a place where we have, as mentioned, those 50, 60 investors all over the globe, and the minority stake you could take previously of a relatively small amount is gone, because there is relatively high administrative costs and lawyer costs and so on having these things. So we needed to raise the bar for every single investor. That hadn't been necessary if we had gotten all these minority investors in from day one. But now we are in a place where spending that amount of money on lawyers for a capital raise in Denmark roughly will set you back about 100,000 DKK. And we originally offered shares or a minimum share buy of 4,000 DKK. So it would take 25 investors to just cover the lawyer's fee, which in principle meant that we offered 25 investors free shares in principle. So we stepped away from that. We might or might not someday open that tranche again, or do an B share issue or a C share or some other way where people can say, hey, I co-own the Storm, because the idea is still there that we want to have people involved and engaged, but financially it's not a sound way to do it currently.
Gotcha. Yeah, because my follow-up question was going to be, do y'all plan to open that back up? But it sounds like no. Is there any type of opportunity for, if there are people out there who are interested in being a minority owner that have a little bit more money that they can bring to the table?
Yeah, definitely. We are actually doing a capital raise at the moment. So you can actually get in the door with a cutoff date of 28th of February. And I mean, for the people who are listening, if they are interested, they're free to contact us on investor@nordicstorm.net. We have meetings every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So people can listen in and hear where we're at and what we're doing. And the reason for us doing that capital raise is that we did a lot of good things in year one, but we also want to do even more in year two, have more full-time employees, and as I mentioned before, more marketing and a better fan experience at the game. We did an okay job at the tailgating and fan zone event last year, but we want to make it bigger and better and more fireworks and so on for year two.
Well, sure. You let me know when you need some tailgate planning. If there's anything that we boys from Texas are good at, it is drinking beer and tailgating before a football game. So,
yes, sir. Just bring the. Well, actually, you don't even need to bring the beer. We actually
I was going to say, I don't know if I can take that on the plane.
Close the sponsorship deal with. We closed the sponsorship deal with Carlsberg, so that's also one of the momentum thing that's happening. So that's very, very good for us.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Beer galore. But talking about ownership, individual teams, yes, but let's move higher up. The EFA has described their ownership as an NFL style. In what way is the EFA similar to the NFL, and kind of which way is it a little different?
Well, the similarity is that it's now franchises working together, pulling in the same direction of establishing something that is for the greater good, which is exactly like the NFL model, where you have the owners discussing how do we make a better profit and how do we make fan engagement, and the NFL International Series and all these things that has been established through that ownership group, and saying, hey, how do we brand better, grow better, and get this message across the globe. So that's the similarity, is that this is now something we're doing hand in hand. The difference is, of course, size and maturity. We are now a first-year league, building on a 5-year previous pro league in Europe. So we are still the very, very small brother in that comparison. So in order for us to even have the honor to be mentioned in the same context as NFL, give it a couple of years.
Okay, so what's it called? Kind of going into the next part. I don't want to hammer too much on the EFA because, like you said, you can't fully speak on everything going on there, as you're not again, owner of the Storm. But you're going to have a lot more questions for us about the Storm. So I want to go to the formation of both the EFA and the Storm. If you go back in time to change anything, would there be anything that you would change or anything that you would do differently?
In the formation of the EFA?
EFA and Storm.
I think from the Storm perspective, and I've actually mentioned this in a couple of interviews before, as many plans and ideas and whatever you might have of experience. I mean, I've been in football since I was 17. I'm 44 now. I know a lot about football. I know a lot about having a football community and a club and all these things from my past experiences. But taking that from a non-pro level into a pro level, there's a major difference, both in time, money, what you need to do in terms of paperwork and legality and all these things. That has taken substantially more time that we expected, making our first spreadsheet of, we can do this, we have the money, that's going to be fun, we can watch football. I've spent many more hours on doing something that was absolutely non-watching football related in 25. But that's also something that comes with maturity. I mean, if you look at us from an organizational point now, when we started, we had one employee, and then we hired a second, and then we had a change of our general manager, and now we are 5 full-time employees plus an intern, and having that scalability of being a full-on pro office with hands enough, time enough, and so on. Had we had the insight and to how much this would actually take, we would maybe have hired 10 people from day one to just say, okay, we'll do that. But we didn't have it. So that's one thing I would have done different. I would have hired more people from year one. On the EFA side, I mean, again, we were latecomers. So in the first initial talks that happened there, I can't speak to how the foundation came about and what they might or might not have done differently. From where we are today, I actually don't think I would do anything differently. Well, maybe the transparency, as we talked about before, I would have wished that there were more clarity sooner, so that the fans and investors and everybody else who's engaged with the overall football community hadn't spent weeks and months of what's going on. But from where we are now, I think everybody's just going to be happy with that level of transparency, and scheduling and what's going to be happening is just going to be trickling out now.
Makes sense. But so as we're winding down slowly, is there anything you can tell us that isn't public yet? Can you have any breaking news on the pod? Regarding the schedule, regarding anything, whatever you want.
We've already alluded to this previously, but schedule should be public within the next 5, 8, 10 days or so. It's in the works. Biggest thing that's happening there is minor changes in timeframes and stadium availabilities and other things that might just need a small tweak in order to be ready. But other breaking news than that is probably hard to do. Yeah.
Any hints as to where championship weekend is going to be?
No, not as of yet.
We're so close.
The biggest thing there is more than likely the TV rights. If that ongoing dialogue with the TV providers, if they want to have it at a certain time frame on a certain day, that might change venue or something else that might need to be done. So that's a flexible thing.
Gotcha. But there is one currently, like as a placeholder. You just can't share that with us.
There might be more than one in order to make sure that we do it in the right way for the fans. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Awesome. So for our last question, is there anything that we didn't discuss today that maybe we should have discussed?
I think we've been pretty well around on everything, at least in terms of what I can answer from a Nordic Storm perspective. There is still a lot of things ongoing behind the scenes in order to make sure that everything works as smooth as possible. But other than that, it's probably hard for me to speak to that until we publicly announce the things that we're going to do.
Fair enough.
Awesome.
I do have one more because we always end on this question. I'm surprised we didn't have this on our list. We ask everybody this, so I promise it's not like we're trying to get you here. If you could choose one NFL player, it can be past, present, doesn't matter, but you could just drag and drop import rules do not apply. Drag and drop any NFL player to the Nordic Storm. Who would it be?
Aaron Donald.
Good answer.
Good one.
Good answer.
Yeah, fair enough. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
and
cool.
then we're gonna play cover 10 behind him.
Probably would work. Probably would work.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I'm a Rams fan. AD is the guy. I couldn't pick anybody else other than him for sure.
Sure.
I mean, we have the offense. We have Jay. We have Glenn. We have a great O line. We have Bo. We have Simon. We have Eddie. We have Roberto now as a tight end. So my offense is set. Having AD as a 3-tech or even a nose in this league, he would probably do okay.
Yeah,
I'm actually surprised we didn't ask this, just considering we talked a little bit about the London team. Are you worried about when the London team happens, Glenn going back and playing home, or do you think you guys can lock him up?
First of all, I want to say that I'm not worried about that. From the perspective of Glenn, as all of our players are individual human beings, and if they see an opportunity that they feel is better than what we can provide for them at the Nordic Storm, they should absolutely pursue it. And that goes for anybody who would like to pursue the NFL or the CFL or whatever they would like to dream about as their thing. Secondly, one of the things that we, of course, hit on for our first inaugural season were come home and play. There were many Swedish and Danish players playing already in the ELF. So it would be absolutely natural for a London franchise to reach out to Glenn and say, hey, you want to come home and play? And I would respect that both for Glenn as a person and what he can provide for a team. From my perspective, as building a football team that is good with a great beast of a running back, I want to keep Glenn as long as possible. and I very much looking forward to seeing him play more than 2 quarters this year.
Yeah.
So I very much look forward to seeing what he can actually do for us in terms of stability, both in the run game, the pass protection, and the pass game. He is a great person, and he does a lot of good. And he did do that even though he didn't even play last year on the sidelines while he was rehabbing and so on. So for anybody who would like to chase Glenn, I can highly recommend him as a person, as a player, and then I can just cross my fingers that he wants to stay.
Makes a lot of sense.
That Aaron Donald selection is going to turn into Derrick Henry real quick if Glenn leaves.
Or Marshall Faulk, or Steven Jackson, or we can pick a number of
even
if anytime, any place. There's many future or old timer running backs from the Rams we could plug and play in there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Rams probably have one of the best like running back history rooms that any franchise do. Yeah, I mean, you got a few years of John Bettis there too. Yeah, I mean, the few years of Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley was running back in football for like 2 to 3 years.
Well, yeah, you could also take that on the wideout. So you could take Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, Cooper Kupp, Puka. There's so many good players we could plug and play in there. So yeah,
love it. Well, cool. Thank you, Michael, for your time. Any last statements that you have for the listeners before we let you go?
Well, first of all, I'm so happy to have the opportunity to be here with you guys. Feel free to reach out another time. Hopefully, we can do it a little earlier than roughly 1 a.m. in the morning here in Denmark. But other than that, to all the investors, fans, stakeholders, anybody who did anything for the Storm in 25 and is still doing it towards 26, we couldn't be more appreciative of what everybody has put in there in time, effort, money. It's been an amazing journey for someone like me who spent roughly 3 decades within football. To see pro football all of a sudden in the Nordics and Scandinavia, and hopefully having the opportunity to create some sort of quote unquote flagship for young players to look up to and create a new generation of football players. That is an amazing journey. There's still far until we're there in terms of creating those new generations, but hopefully this is just the first stepstone to get there.
Love it. Love it. Well, Michael, thank you again for your time. Yes, we all 3 of us apologize how late in the evening it is for you. Very impressed that you're still wearing a suit, dude. I would have been in pajamas.
That's only for you guys. So,
appreciate that. And for those of y'all listening who've made it to the end, you can always follow the Nordic Storm on Instagram at Nordic Storm Football and at Nordic Storm FTB on X/Twitter, because we prefer Twitter around here. But with that, it has been Danny, Tanner, Jordan, and Michael Planeta of the Nordic Storm saying so long, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
Hugs and kisses.
Thank you, guys.